Just a heads up, this has some major spoilers for the Mandalorian show, and I feel like just saying that already gives something away, but as much as I want your view, I would hate to spoil one of the biggest surprises. What's up, meta nerds? This video is going to cover all the different members of Yoda species in both Legends and Canon. If you care about that distinction, I'll put a Legends logo on the screen. With that amazing surprise in the first episode of The Mandalorian, it got me thinking I should cover all the other members of the Yoda species. And right away we already have a cool point. Yoda Species is the official name, with George Lucas wanting to keep Yoda's background a mystery. And as much as I like internally consistent lore, I actually really like that choice. But there is a good amount of information on other Yoda species throughout the millennia, so let's do it chronologically, starting with the first one, Vandar Tokar. He was born 4,225 years before the Battle of Yavin, and like Yoda millennia later, he would sit on the Jedi High Council. Vandar was one of the council members that Revan defied in order to attack the Mandalorians, during the events that would come to be known as the Mandalorian Wars. He was also the Jedi that Padawan Zane Carrick called after surviving the Padawan Massacre, an event that was basically Luke's trying to kill sleeping Kylo, but times 5. As Force visions made their masters think that the Padawans would turn to the dark side and destroy the Jedi and Republic. After eventually discovering the truth of the situation, he helped the Padawan that was being framed for the murders. And when Revan returned, he retrained him in the light side. Vandar would direct Revan and Shan to locate the Starforge, and he even survived Darth Malak's attack on Dantooine, all before participating in the Battle of Rakata Prime. And just some cool tie-ins to point out here, the Jedi Enclave at Dantooine was one of the most important during the time of the Old Republic, and this planet is mentioned by Leia in A New Hope.
Dantooine. They're on Dantooine.
And during the fighting of this Jedi Civil War, Vandar fought alongside Admiral Forn Dodonna, distant ancestor of General Jan Dodonna of the Rebel Alliance. Vandar's death would come in 3952 BBY, when his life force was consumed by Darth Nihilus, in one of the darkest and most insane events in galactic history. His legacy was great, and so to honor him, the Jedi Order had an Oedicon created, a more advanced holocron variant that contained a highly accurate AI representation of Vandar, so that later generations could come as close as possible to speaking with this great master. As for his powers, he would dual-wield lightsaber Shotos, the smaller blades that Yoda uses, while specializing in the abilities of Force Suppression and Sever Force. Both really controversial moves that were seen as cruel by most Jedi, as it made the victim feel as if they were permanently cut off from their connection to the Force. And it's interesting to note that he is the only Yoda species to have a last name, but both he and Oteg would speak with normal grammar. Some believe that this is because they were discovered by the Jedi Order earlier in their lives, and so they never picked up that manner of speaking like Yoda and Yaddle. Oteg was born in 3843 BBY, and became a great military leader as well. Oteg was appointed to the Jedi High Council, but was also asked by the Supreme Chancellor to become a fleet admiral. He led an expeditionary fleet from the bridge of his Valor-class cruiser named Telos. Oteg would run into the ghost of Mitra Surik and eventually free Revan. But beyond that, not much is known about this short-statured fleet admiral and Jedi master. It wouldn't be for another couple millennia before we see the next member of this species. Its name was lost to history, but the stone monument survives to this day. 1,000 years before the Death Star was destroyed, the new Sith Wars came to an end. A powerful attack called the Thought Bomb trapped the souls of 100 Jedi and the entire Brotherhood of Darkness. One of those Jedi was of Yoda species, and his Padawan went back to this site 10 years later to carve out an enormous monument to the Army of Light. As fate would have it, Yoda was the only Jedi to discover the existence of this valley, though he later did teach it to Luke. 300 years after this, we meet Minch. Active in the year 700 BBY, he was a Padawan to the Sabrak Master Tadai. They were sent to investigate reports of Dark Jedi, and in the opening battle he was insulted and eventually defeated, and he would have died if not rescued by his Jedi allies. The Dark One would not reveal the location of his master, but they were able to track the fleeing vehicle to the remote Dagobah system. Minch's master wanted them to wait for reinforcements, but eager to prove himself, the Padawan pursued to the planet's surface. He got sight of the Dark Jedi Master, who ran into a cave. When he entered, the Master insulted him and taunted him, saying that he should turn to the dark side. As the Padawan went to attack, the Dark Jedi grew to enormous size. Then when he was finally cut, he simply became countless versions of himself, all swarming Minch. But as this vision subsided, he saw that the Dark Jedi had received a fatal blow, but his adversaries simply mocked him, saying that he could feel Minch drawing deeply on the dark side of the Force. The Dark Jedi would die there, but this cave would forever be a nexus of dark side energy, pulling out one's deepest fears and insecurities for years to come. Now at this point, Yoda had already been born, but was still just 196 years young. His story is of course a long and complex tale that we'll cover in a separate video. But in the year 509 BBY, we see the birth of Yaddle. She is the first and only female of the species that we have met, and Yaddle starts getting involved in peacekeeping operations at around 200 years old. Her master Ploven Cut was killed when the pair were ambushed, and Yaddle was locked up in a deep underground prison. The mad warlord Tulok would have her tortured endlessly in order to learn about the Jedi's plans, but she never gave in. As the years went by, the warlord would forget about her and leave Yaddle to rot in her pit, an especially cruel fate for such a long-lived species. She would live in solitary confinement for over a century, surviving on the creatures that were able to make their way into her prison. But eventually she became a part of local legend. They called this mysterious being the One Below, with some ritually sending down food to the being that had been there for as long as the villagers could remember. But this also forced her to devote almost all of her time to meditating on the mysterious will of the Force, and all away from the traditions of the Jedi. She was said to have become one with the Force while still alive, achieving enlightenment in the total darkness of her cave. Yaddle lived so long that she was able to catch the next major tectonic shift, and a massive earthquake caused an opening to form. When she emerged, she refused to join the Jedi Council until she had helped the locals rebuild, these long descendants of those who had imprisoned and tortured her. When Yaddle did return to Coruscant, most could sense that she achieved enlightenment, and almost everybody wanted to admit her to the Jedi Council, but she never even became a knight. So on paper, this was going from being a Padawan to the highest position possible, something that had never been done before. Yoda was the only one against this, a real stickler for formality. But with time, he too saw that she was deserving, granting her the title of Master and agreeing that she should sit on the council. It's a good thing Anakin wasn't a big reader, because learning this little chapter of Jedi history would have likely led to an instant dark side transformation. She would train Padawans Oppo Rancis and Brand, but would die in the year 26 BBY. She would use all of her energy to save the civilians of the planet Mawan when a bioweapon was released. Her last words were actually to Anakin, urging him to live up to his role as the Chosen One. Yaddle's time in the cave gave her one of the most unique connections to the Force of any Jedi at this time. She instructed Qui-Gon to study the unifying Force and its connection to the living and cosmic forces. She also developed the long-forbidden martial art of Moraicho, in which a Force user stops the opponent's internal body parts from functioning. This, combined with being able to create Force light, were not known by the other Jedi of this time, but developed in order to adapt in her imprisonment. This unorthodox combination of insights and abilities are what helped her to grasp surely that Skywalker was the Chosen One of prophecy. Also, she was the last master to die before the Clone Wars broke out just 4 years later. And of course, in The Mandalorian, we see that there was a new member of the Yoda species. I could speculate that it was one of Palpatine's captured younglings in the Clone Wars TV show, or even a clone of Yoda somehow, or just some random member of the species like all the other ones covered in this video. But of course we'll know for sure in due time. But let me see some fun speculation down in the comments, and tell me which of these Yoda species you found most interesting. If you want to connect with us on social media, find ways that you can help support our channel without it costing you a thing, or check out our Patreon. Be sure to check out the links in the description. Special shout out to our supporters over on Patreon. But most important of all, remember, always be with you, the Force will.